Pythagoras wasn't just the guy who gave us this formula. He was also the founder of a secretive cult with a strict way of life, quirky beliefs, and a strong emphasis that numbers had mystical powers. He and his followers were obsessed with whole numbers and geometry. They even had rules like, don't eat beans. Don't look in mirrors next to candlelight. Always bow to the sun. Seriously, the bean thing was real. They thought they contained the souls of the dead. But despite the weird vibes, his famous theorem still holds up. In a right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. It's the foundation of trigonometry, architecture, and every student's struggle with word problems. So thank you, Pythagoras, for proving triangles right and making beans suspicious. When Pythagoras pointed to the longest side of a right triangle and announced, "From now on, this side shall be known as hypotenuse." His students' reactions were priceless. One of them turned to his friend and whispered, what did he just say? High on pot news. His friend said, he said high pot in use. That must be a pot hanging high on fire. Another one said, Sir, please. I still haven't learned how to spell isosceles from last lecture. Can we just call it the biggie? One even whispered in disappointment, honestly, no one will take us seriously after this. But Pythagoras, dramatic as ever, stood firm. Hypotenuse. End of discussion. And thus, students have been squinting at spelling quizzes ever since. We're lucky we're just solving simple right triangles. Imagine having to deal with a love triangle. Right triangles are way less complicated. No drama, no betrayal, and no broken hearts. And more importantly, they have nothing to hide. Long before laser levels and fancy apps, builders had a clever trick to check if a corner was a perfect right angle. Here's how it worked. They'd measure 30 centimeters along one wall, then 40 centimeters along the other wall, and finally measure the diagonal between those 2 points. If that diagonal, the hypotenuse, was exactly 50 centimeters, they knew the angle was a perfect 90 degrees. Why? Because Pythagoras said so. It's called the angle of depression because that's how you feel when you realize it's a word problem and you have to draw a diagram, label the sides correctly, and actually think before using your calculator. Here we are assuming that our tree is a confident pine tree that has grown perfectly vertical on perfectly level ground. Because if this tree were slouching, leaning, or planted on a hill, well, then we'd need more information, like how steep the hill was and who planted the tree. We are talking about standing at the edge of a high-rise building while being depressed and looking at the horizon. This can't end well. This quote is found in the legendary and entirely fictional Scrolls of Pythagorean Wisdom, Volume Root 2. Historians remain baffled as to why the great mathematician banned beans. Some say it was a dietary belief, others claim it had something to do with flatulence disrupting geometric harmony. Either way, we got the Pythagorean theorem and a lifelong fear of legumes.